In this talk, I'm going to give you some case examples of what I mean when I say our problems are an invitation to remembering something that couldn't be handled, and how all of life on some level is that invitation. So in this first example, I was doing a demonstration at a large conference in an amphitheater in front of like about 120 people. And the person who came up to do the demonstration, when she came up, the first thing she said she wanted to work on was her major depression. And she said she felt weighed down and helpless and hopeless and she couldn't move. And I use a multidimensional kind of diagnostic system called kinesiology or muscle testing, which I will describe in another talk. And what we discovered is that that was not the most important thing for her to work on. So then she started to have, literally, she started to hyperventilate and have somewhat of a panic attack in front of these people. And she said, well, maybe what I ought to work on is the fact that uh, I believe these people are going to harm me. And I know it's crazy, it's not rational, but I have to be in front of crowds of people, and it's very, very difficult for me. And our diagnostic system also said that that was not her highest intention. So at that point, she said, well, I guess I don't know what it is. And my system said that that was true. She didn't know. So I had to discover it. Now, what we've been doing in life-centered therapy is mapping out sort of universal patterns that people could get stuck in and live out over and over and over again. And sometimes these patterns start in what we call other lifetimes, which we can also talk about later. But if you don't believe in other lifetimes, you could say it's like an undreamed dream or your personal mythology, or it's like play therapy if you're a therapist. But nonetheless, it says the most powerful, simple story for healing is not going to be something that literally happened to this person. And we found out that it happened in what we call a karmic past life, because people can relive lifetimes that are genealogical, which means something happened in their bloodline, or karmic, which means something that happened in their energetic line, at which point they could be anybody or anything. But if it's not genealogical, they won't be their own blood relatives. So it said that it was a karmic story, and in this story, it was a story of a pattern we call a death wish. And a death wish means that if you're a community of people, which is what I believe we all are, I believe we're all communities, one of the people in that community is experiencing, I want to die. Or in this case, since it was in a past life, it would be, I want to complete a death process. So when I had this person say out loud, I want to die, it muscle tested very strong. And I asked if that resonated for her, and she said on some strange level it did. And so I invited her to notice what happened in the body when she was experiencing fully, I want to die. And she started to have excruciating neck pain. And she literally violently started to move her neck like this over and over and over again. And then she said, oh my God, there's a guillotine coming down in my head, and I feel weighed down, and I'm helpless, and I'm hopeless, and I can't move. She's sort of not saying it quite like that, but close. She's in front of a whole crowd of people, and they're screaming epithets at her, and she's saying to herself, I will never be in front of a crowd of people again. And she is saying, like, I hate you, God. I was a good Christian. Why did you do this to me? I will never believe in you again. And we also know why she has chronic neck pain, which she had attributed to an accident, but we found out, of course, that that wasn't what it was about. And she never even considered working on her neck pain because she thought this was a psychological conference. So she's there screaming at God, and then she says, I must have died. So we now know what her problem is. Her problem was that in this other story, in this theoretical other lifetime, it was too much for her to handle this death. And so what she did was she did a process called dissociation, or she left her body. And while she was out of her body, her head in that story was cut off, at which point she was not able to go back into the body. So the part that was left out of the body never got to experience death. It might have known, that part of her might have known that she had died, but she never experienced it. So that part of her was experiencing, I want to die. So we were able to say, here's the problem. The problem is that it was something that was so hard to handle that you left your body before you died. So what you need to do now is choose to call all the parts back into the body, and then let yourself fully die, and then go out through the crown of your head. And at that point, she said something very funny, which is, she said, which one? The one that's rolling down the hill, or the energetic one that was still there. And she said, I know which one. It's the one that's on top of my head that is the energetic one. So she fully comes into the body, and then she goes out through the crown of her head, and she looks up and she says, oh my God, there's light. And she goes to the light, and she says, I am the light. And she gets this beatific smile on her face, and she says, I'm done. And my diagnostic system said that in fact she was done. She had found the whole part of her that was experiencing I want to die, and she had helped it heal. So it no longer was experiencing that anymore. And our system said she had fully come into balance. So then something interesting happened. We're in front of 125 people, and we're in an amphitheater, and people start asking her questions, and she starts turning her head like this from side to side. And after a short period of time, she says, wait a second, this is impossible because I can't move my neck that much. And if I could, I'd be in excruciating pain, but I'm not feeling any pain. And a little while after that, she says, this is also really strange because I'm in front of all of you and we're all kind of laughing together and having a great time. And I should be thinking that you want to kill me, but I'm not thinking it anymore. And she said, I don't feel weighed down and I don't feel helpless. And I have this sense of lightness, and I even can feel the presence of the divine, which I've been searching for my whole life. Now, if you had said to me in graduate school, I had to work with a woman who had chronic major depression, and she had tried all these different kinds of healing work, whether it was cognitive behavioral therapy or energy therapy or a whole variety of other kinds, or psychodynamic therapy, I would have said, well, I wouldn't know what to do with her any more than that. And, she was on medication, which she had said wasn't helping her either. She was doing cognitive behavioral work and taking beta blockers to take care of her anxiety because she had to be in front of crowds of people. But that wasn't working very well either. And I wouldn't have known what to do with that particularly either. And in terms of the chronic neck pain, no one would have thought that I would have been able to do anything with that. And in terms of the sense of alienation, that would have been a spiritual problem. And to think that all of those things transformed in 25 minutes is truly miraculous. And the interesting thing is, I saw her. She came and found me the next year at the same conference, and she said most of all of it held. Now, I want to say this is a very unusual example because for most people, so many seemingly different problems are not all wrapped up into one story. So there are other stories that I will tell you about later of a woman who wanted to have her blood drawn, and it took her over a year just to take care of that one thing. There were so many different layers to it. But truly, 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 that when you have stories like this where so many different things, including something so physical that she had believed was because of a physical accident, transform, we could say that there truly is things that are miraculous that are possible in life.